That was very scary. Well, hey, everybody. My name's Celene. I am going to be digging deep today into practice. Practice, practice, practice. And I think we're going to do a lot more talking today than playing, but I'm definitely going to give you a big overview on what to practice, how to do a practice schedule. These are all very important things. And so we're going to work with that today. This is really I'm absolutely bringing any and all of your questions. I'm more than happy to answer them. But I do have sort of a bit of a presentation to start because I think a lot of people get lost. Like where do we begin? Where do we begin? And so I've kind of with each student, it's very different because I tailor all of my lessons, individual lessons, to the individual need of each student. And some people come to me with a lot of skills and some come to me with absolutely none. So the way that I would teach them is different from person to person. And what doesn't change are the skills that you need to execute what you're doing. And one of the skills that's not often taught is the skill of practice and focused practice. So there's a story out there of a wonderful student. They've been practicing every week and they come back week after week and they just, for some reason, they're just not getting this thing. And I've given them the same pattern and we work on it during our lesson and we work with the metronome in our lesson and things start to progress and then the lesson time's over and I'm like, whoa, 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 don't leave your stool yet. Don't leave your chair yet. Stay there because you're about to teach your brain how to do it. And then instead of stopping there, they felt super confident. I got it in my lesson and then they go back to practicing and they practice for quite a long time, but for some reason they come back and it's just not there. But the reason isn't that they're not putting in the time, it's that they're not practicing efficiently. Our brain is very specific. Neuroscience is very clear on this, that we don't actually learn muscle memory. Our brain learns patterns and how to relate them to our body parts, right? Like that's really what we're doing. So when it comes into the context of drumming, that is bringing in certain skills and a certain skill set and certain techniques and certain things. But if you're not consistently practicing the same thing in a focused way, you're going to have great difficulty reaching what you need to reach. And I'm going to draw you a very crude and terrible drawing because that's how I roll. Whiteboard. Okay, so we've got, ability here to draw. And I'm going to draw you a very crude picture to prove a point. So the first thing is that when you're learning, you have in mind, this is where you are, and this is the thing that you want to learn. So this entire thing, let's say it's a passage, let's say it's a groove. And every time you practice it, you practice exactly that groove, and your brain learns that line. And then you practice slowly and consistently precise, and you get to that line. And you're going slowly and consistently to that groove or that fill or whatever you're working on. And then we do this thing in our lives and usually not enough, and it's sleep, and sleep consolidates our memory. And then we come back to the next day, and if we have practiced this line this way, it'll be in our body, it'll be in our brain, and we'll be able to play this line a little bit, maybe a little bit faster the next day. However, how a lot of people practice is they're going from here to here, and they practice this line. Oh, wait a minute, that wasn't right. Oh, hang on, it's like this. No, wait, I was gonna go like this. No, and they go too fast, they go like this, and they go like this, and they go like this, and their brain now has each and every one of these options to choose from. So accuracy doesn't necessarily come from like getting that faster. It comes from precision and focused practice. See how precise and beautiful my straight line is? No, because we're never perfect. But what we want to do is consistently practice as consistently accurate as possible. Now, this isn't always, life will interrupt us. We're going to get phone calls. We're going to get thoughts. We're going to get, nobody's ever perfect. But if you're targeting your practice in this way, that's going to definitely help get you there. The next thing I wanted to do is I actually wanted for people for you guys to please feel free to unmute for a minute, because I want to find out from you what you believe, what are the musical goals, because this is really where we need to start. So the next thing is about what are your drumming goals. What are your goals? So who has goals? What are your goals? This is like the first thing we need to identify. What are your goals? So give me some goals in drumming. Give me some of your goals. Lisa, Claire, what do you think?
Cindy? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I hit the thing and the video went, and I didn't know if I had volume or not.
Okay. So what are some of your goals? Like, what are some drumming goals we have?
Improving my fills.
Improving fills. Okay. And Lisa, what were you going to say?
Honestly, I'm such a beginner. It's learning my rudiments, really.
Learning rudiments. Very good. What about you, Cindy?
Learning a vast number of songs for all my gigs.
Hey, now this is really awesome. These are 3 very important things to identify. So whenever you're trying to get ready for anything for learning, these are some of the things that we're looking for. Improving fills, learning rudiments, learning many songs for a gig. Now, that's fantastic. Now, when you're what you need to do is to be successful, the people who do like life coaching, they tell you break it into small chunks and movable parts, and also to make it achievable goals that can be monitored or tracked. Those are what they always tell you. And of course, this is correct and true and awesome. So what we want to do is break down your goals.
So this is right up my alley. I'm actually an occupational therapist.
Yay.
I don't know if any of you know what that is, but this is just right. I mean, this is occupational therapy right here. It's like you create a long-term goal and then you break it down into your short-term goals. And, listening to you talk about the neuroscience behind it and everything else, it was like, oh, this makes sense. I actually know what she's talking about.
Now, how do you apply this, right? Like, that's exactly.
Yes.
So, okay, I've done a lot of breaking this down is part of the thing. So, so you each have basically goals. I wrote down list after list. I'm like, what are all the things how are we going to track your progress and track the process and all of these things? And yeah, these are important. But first of all, you have to figure out what your main goals are. And then you break them down. So I don't have any of your songs to use, Cindy, but I thought this is up of everybody's alley, because what we have is we have a song that has all of the components in it. So if I were to be any range of students and they say, hey, I want to learn this song, the first thing I really do is, well, let's look at it. Let's see what skill sets you need to be successful at Smells Like Teen Spirit. And the first thing I see is a rudiment. The first thing I see is a flam. Now, if you've never played flams before, Smells Like Teen Spirit's intro is not going to sound the same, right? So you need to work on your flams first. That's one of the things you're going to put in your short-term goals, because the long-term goal will be the song. The short-term goals are going to be the little skill sets you need for this. So in this case, here we have a flam, but we also have a half open hi-hat. So you need to learn how to use your left foot. Now, Dave Grohl did not think about this when he wrote the tune. He did absolutely not think about it. However, because grunge. And but the thing is that if you look at this from a technical standpoint, and you've got a flam, you've got a half open sloshy hi-hat here. And guess what? It got clean all of a sudden. Now you have an actual open hi-hat versus a sloshy hi-hat. Now, if you haven't learned how to read music, then guess what? We're at another skill that we need to work on. So already we've identified you need to have some rudiments. You have to have some four-way independence, and you need to learn how to read the chart. I know a lot of drummers who never learned how to read charts, and they do just fine. However, this is about filling your tool chest with the things that you really need for not just success at this song or this skill, but a broader look at what are we doing developing ourselves as a drummer, right? So as a drummer, you need your rudiments because they are the words that you use to have musical sentences in your drumming. Learning to read rhythms is going to open up literally the world of books. You got charts you can read. You've got falling music. You've got rudimental things that you can read. And these are really important things to get to know. So those would be the beginning goals. Now the third set of goals that would be here, or fourth, I guess, would be not only reading, but the specific grooves. Now there are different types of grooves in here, and believe it or don't, playing quarter notes seems to be the bane of beginning and intermediate drummer experiences, because we're used to playing these eighth notes. Because this is usually where we start. We start with that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and this, no problem. This hurts people's brains. Quarter notes are hard, right? Because that's not a skill set that you practice. And I'm going to give you some super big, surprising information here. You learn what you practice. I know.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So I have previous musical experience, and so I do know how to read music, but in a totally different way.
Right.
So how am I able to convert reading music for the piano and understanding reading music for drums? Does that make sense?
Yes. Your musical experience is great. It will, however, and actually piano's good. Well, piano's good. They don't necessarily have the pedal, but I mean, think about these as like, these are your pedaling markings, right? But this is the thing, is that the rhythms never change. Rhythmically, it doesn't change. So you can use your piano brain to decode it step by step. Like here, these are eighth notes. How do I know? It's a single beam on top, and this will be counted 1 and 2 and. But guess what? They wrote this in a funny way, and our brain would really benefit from actually writing this as 16th notes instead. So your drum brain will have to decode that in a certain way, right? And also these, legend. We're not talking about the legend Dave Grohl. We're talking about the legend of the page. And this is giving you the information that you need. It's telling you that this is your hi-hat line, so I know that's hi-hat. That's my snare drum line. I know that's there. There's a tom and a bass drum. Well, there's only one tom, and it smells like Teen Spirit, apparently. And then so using your musical, integrating that what you already know is into what you don't know, right? So you're going to have to decode that. You're going to have to decide, okay, I know how to read this rhythm. We have 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4 and. Well, that's interesting. So how do you read this? Well, you can read it line by line. So just playing the quarter notes with your right hand, right, right, right. And this is your left hand, left, left, left. And this is your right foot. So you can read each line individually, or you can read the quarter notes going with your right hand and read only your bass drum notes, or you can go very slowly and methodically, aligning everything where it's supposed to go in time. So how it differs from piano is that there's no melody to hinge your ear to until you really understand the groove. And that's the challenge. This is where piano tends to be a little bit more gratifying in the beginning, where drumming takes a little more patience. Like, you got to be super patient to read through this and decode each thing, because you're working on four-way coordination. You're changing your synaptic pathways, because your brain, you haven't trained your left hand to do a heck of a lot if you're right-handed. You haven't really, how much of your laundry have you folded with your right foot? How many times have you opened your door with your left foot? We don't use these skills on a daily basis. You have to train them. So creating all of that space in our brain by doing slow synaptic practice. So before I would even try to decode this, I would be looking at this. We need flams. We need some flam kick independence. This isn't going to happen without having your right hand, left hand, and and kick drum working in an independent way. So this to me would be some linear pattern practice right there. If you don't know how to read rhythms, that would be the next thing. Can you read the rhythms? If you can't read the rhythms, you're going to need help reading the rhythms. So you're going to have to come to that as a short-term goal. Reading the rhythms. This is so important. How can you be a drummer and not read and understand the rhythms? Sure, you can feel it. I hear this all the time, but I can feel it. And I'm like, yeah, well, did you know you'd be way more accurate if you counted it as you played it? And I know it's daunting to some people, but counting as you're doing it and telling your body what to do when. Because you're like, basically, it's like doing your laundry. We don't shove it all in the bottom drawer and then try to find the socks and the underwear and the shirts. We're like, socks, underwear, t-shirts, pants in separate places. So you're like, I'm going to grab an extra pair of socks because it's cold today. You're not going to go dig through the bottom drawer. So that's really where we're at. Again, that neuro pathway creation. So those are how many goals so far? So learning to play the flam, opening and closing hi-hat, which happens again here. Learning to read the chart, learning to have the independence to play those parts. And eventually there's fills, like just little fills here. So rhythm counting, rhythm reading. So far we've identified how and what you need to practice so that you can play Smells Like Teen Spirit. And that's the joy of working with songs, is that you don't know what you need to know until you need to know it. And this is very true with percussion and drumming. Like this is, we'll go into a concert or something's coming up, and there's an instrument that I've never heard of before. I'm like, I'm sorry, I've never heard of a boobam. Can you tell me what a boobam is? Or, I've never played with a bull's roar. Like I've gone through university, but I'd never heard of a bull's roar. And sure enough, it's like a boomerang. You put on a string and you whip it above your head. So I didn't know it until I needed to know it, right? And that's where we are. So baby steps to get those skills together. So that's my first example. But as you can see, if you're learning hi-hat, opening and closing, that's left foot independence. These are just groove. This is groove study. And there's some pretty straightforward fills, but there's a lot of transitions in the song, which I think is interesting too. So it just goes back. Now, these things are, how do you read this chart? How do you read a sign? How do you read what it's going, where's it going? How do you read that roadmap? So already we've identified all of these things with this one chart. Any questions so far? Because I'm not going to teach this chart. There's so much to unpack with just practicing alone. But that's like foot speed, for example. This gets into some foot speed triplet things. It's awesome. So everybody who's like, oh, it's just grunge, it's just a song. And then you're like, yeah, but let's unpack everything you need. Let's not waste our lives only learning the song when you can develop rudiments and left foot coordination and how to read a chart and how to possibly rewrite it, because this is too many pages. How many of you have an extra hand to flip 4 pages of chart? Nobody. All right, so that makes sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And actually, not only piano, but I played the organ. My mother forced me. So,
you're a natural drummer then.
But when you were talking about foot and having to use the left hand and the right hand and the foot for volume and the other one for pedals, and so that actually helps a lot.
It does.
To give me confidence to know, even though it's been years, but the confidence to know that I can possibly do this.
Absolutely. I started on organ. That was I was able to like rub my belly and pat my head at the same time. So that's why I got to be a percussionist in school. Like literally that is the reason. Okay. So playing organ, like that was my accidental thing. I had a lot of little happy accidents. Okay. So from there, I don't know where my goals sheet went. I thought I brought it up here. There we go. So that's where we started. So we brainstorm all of your goals. And that can be a gazillion pages long. But it's good to get an idea of what you want to learn, because you don't know what you need to know until you start thinking about it. Then you break it down by priority. So in Cindy's case, you have a set list, which you have to literally learn that set list. And you can't do it 10 songs at a time. you're going to need to listen to the charts. You're going to need to, like, I don't know if you're writing your own charts or there's already charts available. You know, all of those things, that's what you're going to start looking at and breaking down the chart. Oh,
This is kind of what I'm doing. See, I can't watch my metronome, watch the other band members and the audience and all my list. So for each song, I just do a little thing. What is the basic groove and what are notes and when I start and stop?
That's bam.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It covers most of it. It doesn't get me necessarily all the fills right or all the accents, but you know.
It's also though knowing, it's also knowing what you need to bring in, right? Like every project's different. So if you're playing like some CCR and you're playing a boom, chick ba boom, chick ba boom, chick ba boom for 4 hours, boom, chick ba boom, chick ba boom, you're not going to be practicing that one thing that you already know. You're going to be like, hey, what fill am I going to play? Do I have to? Is it a signature? So this is actually also important to know, right? For example, oh, I didn't bring up Uptown Funk, but I think I will as an example. Let's open. See if I can get Uptown Funk because
What's a DAW, by the way?
a DAW. DAW. For so yeah, so learning this one. Yes. What do you want to learn? Learning how to record, right? So that is, by the way, totally not good at recording. No. Every part of what we do is a skill set you need to learn. And that's why priorities are important. So if you only have an hour a week to practice and you're like, well, I want to record myself on GarageBand, but I don't know how to use GarageBand, and you spend your hour learning how to use GarageBand, you have no longer practiced. So that's the other reason why we set our priorities. So upcoming shows, deadlines, if you have rehearsals. And then, so this is what I was talking about for Cindy. Oh, wrong one. Bruno Mars. Here we are. This, what is signature is in the chorus. Let's get bigger here. This is very much 4 on the floor. It's very straightforward. There's not a heck of a lot the drummer needs to do. However, shots. These are not negotiable. They fit in with the song. Same with this. Ticka, 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 dot, 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 ticka, ticka, ticka. It is thematic. If it's a theme, if everybody is playing it, those are going to be important moments, right? And as much as we'd like to like freestyle, and that's fine. When something is really that thematically important, then you're going to pay attention. And how do you learn that? The next thing, listen. You have to listen to the music, right? We can't be playing and learning music without listening to the music. So I was going to give another example of how to pick out what to learn, because this is a rudimental, and I know Claire's totally working on rudiments. And guess what? Look at this. Remember, we talked about this in our rudiments thing. This is that 7-stroke roll, that tricky one, the triplet one that goes over the bar line, right? How are you going to play that in time if you don't know how to play that? So in this piece specifically, we have a 7-stroke roll. We have flams. We have paradiddles. It's not written as paradiddles, but you can absolutely play them. This is called a flamacue. This is another 7-stroke roll. This is, you could play it as a flamadiddle or not. And this is coming into 7 strokes. I wrote this in. These are drags. You need to learn how to play drags. I opted for drag paradiddles because it felt right. These are called ratomacues. So if you don't know any of those things, how are you going to succeed at playing this piece? Success is about starting where you're at and building. So if I were going to be teaching a new student and they're like, I want to play this, I'd be like, okay, here we go. We start with bar 1. We start with learning the roll, learning how to roll, because if you don't know how to roll, you can't play a 7-stroke roll. So that's a skill set. The 7-stroke roll, measured rolls, flams, and reading this rhythm. 1 and a 2 and a. Excellent. Now we're going to count it another way. T, ticka, which is Kodai method, by the way, with ticka, tickas, and T's, so it's twice as fast. You can just hear the rhythms. Triple-a-T, triple-a-T, triple-a, triple-a-T, rah. Okay, so every piece has little short-term goals and longer goals involved. It doesn't matter who you are. So then other thing, when you're doing rudimental drumming, style music, stickings become really important. There are traditional sticking patterns, and then there's like there's different ways to do sticking patterns. So that's another sort of pedagogy to dive into and learn about. But you need to decide, you have to make decisions that make musical logical sense. So here I would always go right, right, left, because I'm right-handed. Right, flam, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Now, if you're not experienced, you might not even think about putting stickings in or how important they might be to achieving this piece. Okay, are you still with me? I've been chatting half an hour about things that you need to practice without telling you what to practice, right? So far, I'm never going to tell you what to practice, but this is for you to take out of it and be like, what do I need? So now we've broke it down by priority. Upcoming shows, deadlines, rehearsals, that is 100% your priority. If you have a show, you're not going to learn the exact fills for every song you're learning, Cindy. Like I wouldn't either. It depends on context. And that's what I'd pay attention to through my listening would be, okay, I'm listening to this song and I can hear that this one shot is super important. So how do I make that part of my practice? Number one, you need to use a slow downer. I don't know if you guys have a slow downer. There are some fantastic cheap ones, absolutely free. My favorite is the Wreck and Share app, the Yamaha Wreck and Share. And you can't really record yourself with it without your Yamaha thing. However, you can practice to it. And it has a built-in slow downer. It will make the music sound kind of bad a little bit. It kind of warbles it. However, for a free metronome and a free play along and plus a click, I was going to bring that up here. All right, let's find it and try to get that up. So this is one of my favorites. So this is part of the tools. I haven't even got there yet. But yes. Okay. So having a slow downer. Let's do this complicated thing that it always makes me do. Come to screen share. Oh, I suppose they need internet for that. Okay, screen share. And here we go. Oh, it won't let me connect to you. Boo. Okay. Maybe we won't today. But yes, so the idea is to use a slow downer app. That is going to, there we go, be an important one. So the Wreck and Share app is what it looks like. This is my little thing of some musical apps that I use. This amazing slow downer I bought probably 10 years ago. And they constantly do upgrades. And I think it was like my first app that I paid like $12 for, which in app money was like $1,000. So I was like, oh, I'm going to pay $12 or whatever it was. And I did. And for what it's worth, it's good. But this free app does a lot of the same things that this one does. In fact, it does something that I think is more important for drummers, and that is this feature here. I'm hoping this won't be screamingly loud. You can choose just to use a metronome, or you can choose to not use a metronome, and you can add extra beats in the beginning so you can get your sticks out and ready to go. So, and then down here, you get to choose your tempo. So if I pick a song, as you can see, the things we've been working on lately, and I have a section in here so it cues it up like this. And then it will do a 4-click start for you. And then it brings the song in. Guess what? So what do we have going on then? Oh. And we'll unshare. Okay, so what do we have going on then? What has happened? It slowed it down for me. It has counted me in, and it has a metronome going throughout. So this is a tool, super incredible, super important. That's
so you have to have the MP3 on your phone or your
yes,
and pull it into there.
They do have some capacity to do some streaming, but not everything. I 100% buy all my music. Being a musician, I just have this thing where I'd rather pay the musician and then have the music. I like having music. But that's what this tool is about. Slowing it down so you can have, again, a slow, accurate way to play through the piece. Because if you're playing fast and you're playing a lot of wrong notes and you're playing a lot of things that aren't there, whatever you've practiced, you will perform. So again, that slow, steady, precise, constant stream of consciousness that you only give your brain one option, then you're only going to play one option, right? So we're going to keep that as a principle, and slow downers can help you do that. Your students. Yeah.
I use YouTube actually because you can
Oh, yeah.
custom how slow you want to be. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yeah. I didn't learn that until like a year and a half ago. Like it was, I grew up without YouTube. So, I did it the old fashioned way where I'd listen to it and then I'd have to like stop with one bar and be like, I think this is what it was. Let's listen to it again. And then 5,000 times later, maybe. So I love technology. That's also on my list. My list is technology. So yeah, so far we've covered.
Cindy, can you repeat that again, what you said about YouTube?
So in YouTube, you can actually click on like a little gear at the bottom and slow it down by either a custom amount that you choose or by less than 75, or you can speed it up. So yeah. I just learned that recently through one of our clinics, actually, too.
All right.
3 months ago.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I think tools are amazing. Technology is also part of recording yourself on your phone. Like, look at us now. I can look at you guys. Look at you all, right? This was not possible even like 5 years ago. This was not a thing, right? So we have technology. And I'll tell you right now, Zoom is actually a very good teaching tool for yourself because of a few things. First of all, most everybody has Zoom and most everybody has a laptop or a computer where they can do that. You can also just use your phone. If you have a phone with this, remember back in the day when a phone just called people, right? And now we have literally a computer in our hand where you can record yourself. And it doesn't have to be a fancy recording to learn from your recordings. But this is I'll get into this with the tools. So we're getting into our long-term, short-term. We talked about them. I'll show you some of mine. For example, short-term goals. I have an orchestra concert coming up, and I know where my sticky spots are, so I'm going to do that. And this is what I'm working with the little brown jug brass. I need to do a tempo set list because practicing just the songs is great, but you need to practice the starts and stop of tempo. So you're going to take your metronome and figure out how fast or slow you are going to play something with the band. So when you're in rehearsal, this is definitely discussion. What is our tempo? Can we agree on the tempo? This is where it feels good tempo. And then that's what you write down. And then you're going to use your metronome to start at that tempo without the recording anymore. Once you've learned your song and you've got that into your body, you have to start practicing your start tempos and learning to hear the music. So for example, if I have a new song, like I need to review Brooklyn is one of the songs. It's on their recording and it has so many parts and it's not hard. It's just remembering the order. So I need to remember what is the order? Where are the solos? Where does my thing change? And those are things I will practice without the recording because we'll depend psychologically on the recording. Working with a recording is amazing because you can listen to it, you can learn the song, you can learn a lot of the parts. But if you're used to using a recording and you haven't practiced the song alone in your mind from part to part, it can become challenging when you go into a higher stress situation when you're in a concert, for example. So it's a really good practice to have. So you practice your start tempo, I always think of the chorus or the verse where somebody's singing because that is a good cue for where that tempo feels right, and then play it and then come back to your metronome and be like, hey, am I staying on this tempo? So that's another thing we need to practice. So another secret to good practice is building it into a schedule. So for example, some people are really great with being like, I just ate supper. I'm going to go down and play my drums for 15, 25 minutes. Or I'm going to sit down. Oh, look, I have an hour and a half without my child and I have 27 songs to learn. I'm going to go down and do that, right? But building it into your schedule so that you make time for you and what you're building for yourself. And we have a tendency to put ourselves like, dishes first, then practice, right? And, if you haven't done the dishes for a week, okay. But things can wait, right? There are things in our lives that we make priorities and then we forget about this whole music thing. So we need to make it a priority. And this is what we just talked about. Don't know what to work on? Open up a method book and start reading. And then you'll learn very quickly, what do I need to learn, right? What do I need to work on? And this is really about developing those skills. What skills do you need? Do you have all the skills to play this song? Do you have all the skills to play this piece? What do you need to spend time on? So you pick a chart. Where are your weaknesses? Is it rhythmic accuracy, playing 16ths, playing 8ths, playing bass drum, lining up the notes? What are the things that are getting in your way? And I talk a lot about deep listening because we listen in different ways. You can listen passively in the car and sing along and drum with the wrong foot, which I do all the time, bass drum left foot while I'm in my car. But when you dig deep into a song that you're learning or a piece that you're learning and you listen to the correct person doing it over and over and over again, that deep listening will give you a sense of feel and a sense of time. So that's an important thing to bring into you, and you'll miss things the first few listens until you sit down and actively listen. So that's a good thing to do. Choosing reasonable practice goals. Okay, this is the one that people struggle with because they're like, I have no time to practice. And I say, oh, okay, well, in the morning, how long does it take for your coffee to percolate? And they're like, oh, probably about 6 minutes. And I'm like, perfect. That's 6 minutes of stick control in your kitchen, right? So it doesn't have to be huge, long spurts to be really effective. It just has to be sort of more consistent. And then this is a very important thing. Your brain, after 25 minutes, you can't focus on the same thing for more than 25 minutes. It's just not physically, we just don't. Our brains go all over the place all the time. So you can't practice for effectively for more than 25 minutes without needing to switch something. And then there's inspiration, because I see this all the time. Oh, I'm not inspired to play. I just don't feel inspired. It's like, well, duh, because it's a feeling. Inspiration, like anger and happiness and sadness, and it's a feeling. They come and go. Feelings come and go. But discipline is a choice. We don't choose being inspired. It's a feeling, right? Like, how do we feel inspired? Certainly we can go and dive into inspiration. Like, oh, I'm going to watch some Annika Niles videos because I watch her and I'm like, oh, that feel. You just want that. That's building inspiration. But again, it's a feeling. That's going to go when I sit down at the throne. Do you think I'm going to start playing, suddenly get septuplets into my hands because I watched Annika Niles? No, I now need the discipline to go sit down and do it. That's what we need to do. So I kind of did a little mini, I will put this up, by the way, on my Beatkeepers PDF site. So you don't have to write everything down if you forget, if you want to look at that after the clinic. But this is just like a little example of practice tracking. So if you really need to do this, then do it. I just write it down like a list. It's like, what's the date? What's the time? Because there's some times in the day where you're going to be much more efficient at your practice than others. So doing a 5-minute warm-up. So whatever that is, you need to get your body warm. The things I use most are stick control, like the 4-way coordination stuff that we did last week. That first page of the 4-way coordination with all the different foot ostinatos, the ostinati, that's what I like to warm up with because it's mindless, and then my body gets ready to play. Then you dive into your work. I put groove work as an example, but then you're going to spend a really focused amount of time on one thing. 10 minutes on one groove is a lot. That's a deep dive, right? And then you're going to do some sort of fill work, like learning how to play a fill, learning to listen for a fill, maybe taking a linear pattern and turning it into a fill, whatever that is. So right there, you have your 25 minutes. So then once you've done some of this work, I always want all of my students and myself to spend at least 2 minutes of my practice improvising. So whether that's improvising a groove or playing around the kit, the only way you're going to learn how to be creative is to give yourself the space to be creative. It's a process. And so many people think that it's either there or it's not. It's a practice to be like, okay, but it's a practice within parameters. So that really, really helps. So with my improvisation, I'm not like, I'm just going to play whatever random stuff. In my improvisations, I'll be like, okay, I'm working on the right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left pattern. So I'm going to move this around the kit. I'm going to play this. I'm just going to play this right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left on the hi-hat. So here I'll show you the progression. So we're going to play it on snare drum and hi-hat, and then I'm going to move it around the kit, and then I'm going to see if I can create some fills out of it. Now this is probably a month-long process. This isn't the same day. So one pattern I worked a lot on was like right, left, kick. What can I do with right, left, kick? And sometimes it can be a variation. So you can, to make the grooves work or to make the fills work or whatever it is. So that is kind of what I would work with. That's how I made improvisation a part of practice. And it really, after, a few years of making myself sit there and think about these little pieces for just 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, often that would create its own set of explorations. And I would do that much more often and get some more things out of that. So if you have more than 25 minutes, then you're going to repeat these, work on some more grooves, work on some more fills, work on some more improvisation. Unless you're learning songs, then you will work on your song groove, playing through the song, playing through the fills, executing, getting into and out of the fills without messing up your time. Like, this is a huge skill set, right? So those are and I always recommend metronome practice with all of these. And that's like a whole other topic, metronome practice. Practice is boring, and that's good. Your brain isn't going to get that instant reward that playing Mary Had a Little Lamb first time on the piano will. So you're just going to be boring. Just get to your throne and remember that targeted approach. Don't know where to start? Rudiments, basic grooves, listening, playing along. Those are all so important. And I always talk about getting a mentor. Now, a lot of people are like, well, I have some good and bad feelings about things like Drumeo. I think Drumeo and Mike's lessons and all of these things are fantastic tools. Even YouTube free stuff is awesome tools. The challenge is that there is so much information. It's information overload for me. I am not good at going, I would really like to learn Steve Bozzio or Terry Bozzio's fill here. I really want to know Steve Smith's XYZ. I'm terrible at it. And then I will have paid 6 years of this subscription and gotten 3 pages out of it because I don't have the time and I don't have the inclination and I don't have a real coach. So how do I coach myself? This is what we're talking about, really, is how do you coach yourself? So far, there are some repetitive themes. Rudiments are the words. You're learning to keep time, and you need the tools for that. So using a metronome, playing along to music. You can also solidify your time and your pulse. This was a question from Andrea. How do you solidify time and pulse for students? And a really good way to do that is through music. Put on music and practice your rudiments. So put on, I really enjoyed playing a chem tune, and I used a slow downer because it's the song I Get Lifted, and it's really straight ahead. It's a four on the floor, and it's soul, and it's just uplifting. And so what would I play? Right, left, 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 right, left. What else would I practice? 1 and 1. So let's talk about the runway. This is going to be a little more challenging because I switched out my mic for comfort. But let's talk about the practicing principles that really help streamline your practicing. So one of them I call the runway method. So the first thing that you need to do is you have to already have learned your fill. And then I call it like a runway. So you're going to do a bar before, and you're going to do your fill. And you're going to imagine that you're doing the bar after. So you learn your fill, you learn the bar before the fill, and that's the groove that you're going to use for playing along, and that you're going to go to and from with your fill. So let's find an example from here. Okay, this is an actual chart. And the other question Andrea had was, how do you not get bored of this when you're a learning player? And I have to say, despite the fact that it looks so simple, this is hard to play very well. Quarter notes together without flams. So how I would do this, there's no fills here. There's only this one. Da, da, ga, 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 da, 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 da. So you need to play the runway. The first thing you would do is learn this section. Da, ba, 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 ba. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1 and 3, 4. And I've learned that. The runway is the bar before it, which is this here, but that just means repeat. This groove coming into it, this groove coming out of it. We have created the runway. So this would be my example. Did you want me to play it for you? That makes sense? Okay, so the runway. I'm going to mute my vocals. Literally a runway. You have to know the groove. And I botched my first try at the fill that I'd never looked at. But that's what you do. You're like, oh, well, did I play that right? No. So you do your runway. Once you've learned this correctly or fill correctly, then you're going to do the runway approach. You're going to take your groove before, your groove after. Sometimes it's good to start without your metronome so that you can get all the parts together, but you're not going to be perfect the first time. So you want to make sure, oh, I do know this groove. I learned this groove. Awesome. I know this groove. And I know I'm going to be going from this to this to this. So that 4-bar phrase, just going from this to this to this, and you can stop and go back from this to this to this, and you've targeted the practice. So now I have the main groove, I have this fill section which repeats, and I've got the new section and how to read that, right? So that's how I would use the sort of runway method. And you can also do this in a less boring way by playing a song. So you just put on a song, even if it's not Funky Town, and practice this runway, because practicing with a metronome can get boring for people. So that's another way of making those boring things less boringer, less boring. All right. What was the other one that we were looking at? So, if you want to track when you've practiced, what you've practiced, and for how long, because then you're going to know what you're missing. So I usually start with warm-ups. Warm-ups will be simple, straightforward. They will be easily achievable speed-wise, starting slow and getting faster, and slowing down, because this is about muscle. Don't forget about your feet. Don't forget about your feet. Your feet are part of your drumming journey here. And if all you practice are your hands, you're going to have sloppy feet. And there are different techniques for different things. So that's something you and your coach will need to definitely work on together. That's what it's there for. Using a metronome, there are so many ways to use a metronome. Oh my goodness, you guys. So we can practice right on the beat. Bum, 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 bum. Or you can space it out. It was 1/16. What's half of 6? Here, let's pretend. So we went bum 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 bum. Right now I'm hearing it on the 1 and 3. How do you hear that metronome? How do you hear and feel that beat? That's how you're going to develop your through the use of your metronome. Practicing along with music, we talked about that. Slow down app, we talked about that. Recording yourself, we did talk about that. YouTube, which Cindy brought up. And I was saying, there's some really great things out there. I'm not going to knock Drumeo ever, or Mike's lessons, because those are excellent tools if you use them. But I have found for myself it doesn't work because I need a coach. I need somebody to be like, hey, I'm going to see you once every month or once every 2 months or whatever it is. Or, hey, I have a project and I need some other opinions on. And that has always been more effective for me because I have somebody who knows me and gets to know my needs, which is going to be different from Claire's needs or Lisa's needs or Cindy's needs, right? Like we all have different needs. So, and we all have different things we need to practice. So, where do you start? Have I answered all of these questions? Like, if you don't know where to start, rudiments, basic grooves, linear patterns. Now, a lot of people skip those, but learning linear patterns is a big game changer because it uses your bass drum as part of your fill. And I'll show you this one. I have a favorite linear pattern that I got out of Mike Johnson's book a decade ago, and I've unpacked it a lot. So I'm going to show you guys that one and how I practiced it in different ways. So it starts off as the linear pattern on the snare drum and bass drum, and then it moves to the hi-hat, and then it moves to the floor tom, and then I go freestyle and I play it my way. One idea, digging deep, finding what you want to do with it. That's your practice. And then don't forget music. Okay, now I know this is funny, but drummers are musicians too. Like, we get a lot of flack. It's just not fair. But the truth of it is that if you have a dynamic drummer in a band, your band is going to be more dynamic. So learning how to play dynamically, that is something you need to work on. The feet, I have so many things that I like to do with feet, and I think linear patterns are a huge thing for your whole body to participate in your fills. Because I find that what ends up happening is we learn our hands, but we forget about our feet. And there's lots of different ways we can add in our feet. There was one more thought I had on this. Oh, yes. If you want to be a musical player, you need to practice musically. So that has to be one of your goals. And creating phrasing. Like, I didn't do a whole lot of phrasing with those fills yet. You gotta find your phrasing. Here's another linear pattern. I'm just gonna turn down. Unpack it. That's a pattern learned over and 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 over in different ways to create a groove. Where am I going to move it for a fill? How am I going to work this pattern in? And you can keep unpacking things your whole life. Yay! Drumming is lifelong. We all do that, right? So, all right, I'd love to open up the floor to you. What do you guys have for more questions?
I mean, I guess for me, Celene, I have so many songs and I'm not a very advanced player. So what I'm doing is I'm actually I have to simplify. I try to keep the essence of the grooves and the fill, but some songs I may have to do eighth notes instead of 16th. Some fills I may have to simplify parts.
Absolutely.
And that's it. I wish I could learn all the parts, the rudiments I need, but I just can't in time to be at the gig.
And that's exactly it. If you're playing to a gig, you need to learn your gig. So there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You absolutely need to learn what you need to learn, right? There's no changing that. If you're and you're doing absolutely the right thing. Like, I would definitely pare it down, and I would do the same thing. I'd be like, this song is this tempo, main groove 1, main groove 2, and if you have it on one set list, great. But, I know people are really scared about, like, running out of time to flip pages, but I've never in my life not been able to flip a chart page. So if I can write certain things out, I will. If I can't remember it by memory, right? And I think that's another part, is developing your memory. How do you develop your memory? How does your memory work? I mean, everybody's so different. We're all different neurodiversities. We're all different focus abilities. And that's the thing that is so wonderful about drumming and music, is how many parts of our brain it uses and how many parts of our body it uses. And the fact that it's it's awesome for fitness. If you drum for like half an hour, my daughter drummed on the hi-hat doing eighth notes. She's 6, so she has a lot of energy. But she just did it for like the first time together. And she's like, whoa, Mom, that's a lot of work. And I'm like, yeah, it is, right? It's a workout. So drumming is so good for us in so many ways. And I hope this really helped you to sort of be like, okay, now I have a plan. That's what I'm hoping for you. Did I answer all your questions? Does it seem like I answered Andrea's questions? Cindy, I think I did.
Yes, it did. The 2 main questions, absolutely.
Yeah. So what I would challenge you guys to do right now, I know what your goals are, Cindy. I would love for you to do some recordings. I know you have been showing some on Facebook and stuff, like your recordings of what you're working on. You don't have to share it. So by the way, that's the qualifier. When you record yourself, that is for you. That is for you to see. That's like, oh, I thought I played that fill a lot more cleanly, but it appears that I'm not in time. So maybe I need to do a little runway in and out of that fill until I feel comfy. And I play fills like and linear patterns and things like that along to music that is just like something that moves me forward so that I don't just have to listen to the metronome. And listening to and playing along to music will also teach you how to play along, to listen to people. I think playing with a band is a totally different thing than playing along to a click. They're different skills. And it's not just about staying together, although that's a lot of it. It's also the confidence to drive the bus and to have, you have to practice being metronomically more accurate. Our timing accuracy is important, right? And how do you get that? Practice. And how do you get that with the band? Some bands they don't want to practice to a metronome, but it is so telling. If your whole band practices to a metronome, nobody can say, oh, you're playing this too fast, you're playing that too slow, you rush in this. You put it together and everybody will be humble. I promise. It's true. So any other things? Did I miss anything? Probably, because there's a lot to unpack. But I hope that this gave each of you, something, to work on and some sort of pathway forward. Yeah? I'm seeing some nods.
Definitely. And I mean, the whole series has been, for me personally, very beneficial. I mean, it covered a lot in only 3 sessions, and I'd love to do more with you. All of us get together again, like Sue had suggested last time, and kind of see where we're at, maybe in 3 months' time. Do another series.
Awesome.
So since I missed the last 2, Cindy, are the video recordings available?
There are, for sure. The first one I'd already sent. I haven't sent the second yet, but
Okay.
they will be on the channel, Beatkeepers channel, and I'll send you the links out for sure.
Okay,
week.
perfect. Because, I feel like I'm just coming in at the tail end. Like I said, life. So
Life is going to always happen, and drumming will always be there for you. That's the best lesson.
thank God.
Yeah, always come back to music. It never goes anywhere, right? Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your part of your Sunday afternoon. As always, you can send Cindy or me your questions. I'll put up I had so many ideas. I created like 4 new PDFs, and I just was like, there's just too many ideas. So, any other questions, Claire?
No, this is really thorough, and it kind of lit a light bulb in me about just doing a little practice on sticks in the kitchen while the coffee's brewing. I can do that in the morning easy. Can't use my full drum set because I go to work at 7 a.m. So
Well, honestly, I found that to be a bit of a
little
game
early.
for hands, right? Like,
Yeah.
well, how do I do this? Like when I had a little baby, like I can't just go downstairs and drum. Like it's not gonna work. So like,
Yeah.
just like you can find those pockets. And same with listening. Like for me, one of the things I do is I create the songs I'm working on set list for listening in my car. So I'm driving places, or I'm going places, or I'm doing laundry, or I'm doing whatever in the house. Because like we all have life to deal with. I just put on that listening series, and it's in the order of what we're going to be playing it in. So then I get used to listening to the song and the tempo and all those things one after the other. It's listening. It's part of that growth, right? There are little things you can do that will really just like, when you come in to sit down, you'll have extra, like just those little snippets of time. Like, holy smokes, it'll improve your left hand, right? Holy smokes, it'll. And even like when you're bored at work and you're tapping your feet at the same time and annoying somebody next to you. I mean, that's totally what we got to do. So, so just make time for you, right? Make time for it.
Yeah.
Your work.
I like that because I tend to think of the big picture and I've got to do this project, and it's like,
well,
I know it's helpful to break it down. And
but it's just like life, right? Like what are our big goals? And then you just got to be like, okay, well, I'm not going to be flying an airplane until I start studying it. And how do I do that? Right? Anything in life, this is applicable to anything. This isn't just applicable to drumming, right? Like how do we make those chunks smaller and achievable? And then you can start building it, scaffold it. We talk about that a lot, scaffolding it, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. But thank you for your Sunday. So glad.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It's been awesome. And
Thank
again,
you
I'll send the
very much.
recordings.
Perfect. That was very helpful.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Take care.
Take care,
All right.
everyone.
Have a good day.